Hi, we're back.
I know. And for another sizzling, titillating session with the two media docs.
That's
Hi,
right.
Diane.
Very excited to talk about this. I want to talk a little bit about body language because I know you address that in your new book. And I think that's such a huge topic as I go to sit up straight as we're looking at what we're doing with our bodies. I had Paul Ekman on my show, and I don't know if you saw the television show Lie to Me, but that was based off of his work, when you can tell if somebody's lying if they look a certain direction or their face when they make certain expressions. And you know what I thought was the most interesting about that was I think there were 6 different expressions that everybody has. Even blind people will make certain expressions, which was interesting since my dad was blind. That
Wait, so was my mom.
Oh, that's right. And so, you know, and he was blind from birth, and the ones that are blind from birth even do this same expressions for, you know, disgust or, you know, different feelings that they had. And so, and it was interesting because when I talked to him, he said, you know, a lot of that show, they, you know, they exaggerate to some extent, but it was fun, you know, and they did a lot of very interesting things. And there's other shows like Bull, and they look at body language, what people are thinking. And I think about that. How much do you focus on your body language when you're on television or if you're on Zoom doing meetings with people? I know you give some advice in your book, and I wanted to just get your insight in that.
Well, first of all, this is a new era because we're all talking about Zoom. We're all on Zoom. We're doing Zoom right this minute. And suddenly, we're only concerned about from the head to the waist, and not even all the waist. And sometimes sometimes we use our hands to emphasize things while we're on a Zoom call. But if we don't use our hands, we're just a talking head, and that is very boring and monotone. So what?
Max Headroom. Remember Max Headroom from MTV?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. We have got to concentrate on what I talk about all the time. Having eye contact is the dialogue. Having that dialogue and that dialogue before you go into your monologue is absolutely positively essential. However,
before that, however, because as we talk about this, I have to look up at the camera to make you see my eyes. If I look at you, what do my eyes look like? So, you know, this is me looking at you in the eye where it looks like I'm looking you in the eye on Zoom or whatever product we're using. How do you deal with that?
If I'm looking at you now, what do my eyes look like to you?
Like you're looking down, you're not looking at me.
That's a problem.
Right, and that's what we're getting through this.
How many people talk about this? They
no
just throw themselves, no one.
Exactly. Everybody knows that that's how it works because they know where they're looking and they know where the camera's up here for me. It's way up here. So if I look up there, I'm looking you in the eye. But if I actually look and want to see what you're doing, which is what I want to do, I don't want to look at a camera. I want to look at your face.
Exactly.
So I'm looking at your face. I'm not really looking you in the eye from your perspective.
Now look at me. I'm looking at the green light on my camera.
Yeah.
What do I look like now?
Well, if I was old and young enough to actually see my screen, I would see that you were actually looking at me. See, when you look at the green light, it works. But the problem is we're looking at green lights to make it look like we're looking. And then when you're doing a show like this, for me, when I have somebody on Zoom, I want to look at their face or I'm going to look at my notes, which might be over here. So there's no point where I'm either looking at you or my notes that I'm looking at the camera for you to feel like I'm looking at you. So this is a whole new problem.
This is a whole new problem that nobody has ever discussed ever before, because what we have found was a huge pandemic. Everybody was in their homes and they're still in their homes, and we are left with Zoom calls. Now, Zoom calls may seem as though, oh, how easy, you just throw yourself onto Zoom. No, you don't. If you're not looking at the camera, you're missing each other's body language, and
Right.
that's
If you're
really,
using your hands, I'm not seeing your hands. I'm looking up at the camera, maybe. You know what I mean?
well,
It's a
that's
yeah.
it's
So how do you get past it? That's a for me. What I tend to do is I drag. Well, it was with Zoom. I know we're not supposed to use any particular product, but let's say right now we are using Zoom. Sometimes we use Zencaster for sound. We use all these other ones for different things. You've got Google Meets and all these different ones. But the point is, you can drag your screen up a little bit, but once you drag it to the highest part of your computer,
how do
it'll
you do
open it'll
how,
open up into a full screen, and then it drops everything down again.
again? How do you bring your screen up?
Well, it's just like with any window. If you've got it partially open, I don't use Apple, but I do use a PC. But I used it on both. I use Apple for my radio show. I use PC for this right now. If you drag your window up on a PC, if you get it all the way to the top of the screen, it'll open it into a full window, which
You can open it on Apple also.
right, but you're still low. You know what I mean? I'm bringing you up on as compared to down here right now. You're way down in the corner, and you can see I have to look down at you. I could drag it up, and you're higher, but you're still never going to be as high. You're going to be about this far from my camera.
That's exactly right. So this is what I am suggesting to everybody. You look at the camera, you look at Diane, Diane looks at me, she looks at the camera. So the eyes are constantly dancing around.
Yes,
We cannot lose the association between the two of us in an intimate setting such as this. And you don't want to do that. If somebody is giving a major report on Zoom and they are not making eye contact with other people, that's a problem also. If I'm looking at myself, and now I'm looking at myself, and I'm missing you. I need to see
yeah, that's
your
another distraction. You
This
look
is
back because nobody
ridiculous.
in your meeting room, you're not looking over. Oh yeah, my hair is doing what. You know, you're not doing that because there's not a mirror right there. So it's
Exactly.
a whole other thing. And you're small now. Gilda's head is now this big instead of this big. So unless I put on my glasses, I can't even really see you. You know what I mean? In a work setting, you'd be. And I don't like to wear glasses. It's uncomfortable to me. I will, but I'm just saying there's all these other factors that we don't have in the regular world that we got to figure out how they're gonna. Maybe they'll get a 3D version of you that'll pull off. Actually, in the Wall Street Journal recently, there was an article that they're starting to get these virtual reality goggles. Instead of doing like a Zoom situation where I actually see you, it'll give me a 3D gilded cartoonish thing, and you're right here with
Right.
me. And they're starting to do more of that, so that
Called
you're
cartoon. That's wonderful. That's wonderful for the people
an
who are
avatar, but
serious.
but you could look good in this avatar. Like you don't have to worry about the hair. See, that's what I would think that Zoom should do. Zoom, if you're listening, or any of the other ones, combine with Snapchat and do the thing where it puts on your makeup and does everything perfectly. Have you ever
Oh,
done
perfect.
Snapchat where you get the eyelashes and the perfect
Oh, I
makeup?
love that.
Yeah, Zoom needs to do that where you hit the button. We don't ever have to do our hair and makeup.
Instagram does that too, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it better than how Snapchat does it, but I'll have to check out Instagram now. But
Yeah, and
they
Instagram has
they
the
do it so well while you're talking. Your makeup and everything's perfect while you're talking. And
however, that is make-believe silly stuff. We are talking about major
so fun.
concepts that we're trying to project
Yeah,
out there in very serious meetings,
right.
very often. And
Yeah.
so we want to make sure that we get our points across, but we're also hitting the nerves of the people who are on camera with us, but are not being focused on. This is really, really important because if you don't look at, now I'm looking at the green light right now.
Me
If I
too.
don't look at the green light, if I look at you,
Uh-huh.
then we're missing something.
Right.
However, having been the one who does the editing on our sessions, I have not found this to be a problem on the playback.
It's not so much of a big issue. And people realize you know, what people are looking at. I think it's good to look at the people, because if I go back and forth, if I'm trying to make a point and I don't need to look at what you're doing particularly, and I'm speaking, I'm more likely to look at the camera, and then like right now, and then you can actually speak to the audience. If I'm speaking to you particularly, I tend to look more at you because I want to see your expressions and have that interactions and build that empathy and awareness.
We were talking some time ago about being real and why reality television became such a phenomenon after the scripted soap operas and all the scripted things that we have been watching on television.
Right.
But reality is the thing that people want. They feel, and that's that feelings component that you don't want to know about. But no, people want to know, especially because we are in these intimate settings, that we do have undivided attention all the time. That's very basic. But while you're doing this, I think the takeaway from this is that you have your camera to look directly at, you have the person to look directly at, and you could look at yourself if you're that interested. But when you think about it, when people are having a conversation, they're looking away and they're talking and they're doing things and whatnot. That's a normal, natural conversation. If you want to talk about a robot kind of presentation, well, that loses people, that loses eyeballs very, very quickly.
Well, I
So
think
you want
you
to
do.
be natural.
I think you do need to look at yourself once in a while, because I've seen people where they're like way down.
Oh
You know what I mean?
no!
And all of a sudden you're like, you know, wanting to look, where are they?
Oh, no. I always say, okay, can you come on up? Come on up. No,
With
no.
my sister, I see about this much of her, you know, when we play like cards on something. And some people, I'm watching some guys all scratching the top of their head into the screen. You got to be aware that sometimes they put you in these little squares down at the bottom, depending on which software platform you're on and how many people are on these platforms. So you have to have that awareness of what you or how you look if you're still in it. And Gilda and I, we try to make our heights the same, and my lighting's a lot darker than her lighting, and our houses are different of how we work. And you do the best to try and be aware of different aspects of how you guys look on the screen. So I don't realize, I'm just stunned by how many things are going on in the background too sometimes.
No, this is the thing. You know, I studied Spanish and flamenco dancing,
Yeah.
and when I was playing the castanets,
Yeah.
the footwork was entirely different from the that we did with the castanets.
I'm thinking of patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same
Well,
time.
yeah, it's kind of it's exactly like that.
Yeah.
Thinking of that at the same time that you're thinking of projecting and dancing so that you are
Mhm.
tantalizing the audience. I mean, you public speakers, it's not just getting up and reading from a speech. First of all, my people do not read from anything. No reading of speeches. Even when you have visuals, if you're going to put up a visual and read from the visual for the audience, it's insulting to the audience because it's telling them, well, you don't know how to read so well, so I'll read it for you.
That's really an interesting thing, because, you know, I spoke at SHRM last year where I had to speak to a couple thousand people, and they really wanted, you know, I did the slides of just a picture to remind me where I am without any words or things, you know, like everybody's been doing. And I got so many people going, I want the slides later because I want to remember and I want to have the, I'm like, well, you're going to have a picture of a cat, you know, or whatever it is, you know, what. So I started actually putting more content in than I did in the past. I don't read anything that's on my slide, obviously.
No, you're not supposed to.
No, I know. And I teach a lot of courses where I'm like, just have bulleted points, you know, all the stuff we've always said, don't put your main content on. But, you know, then you got into death by PowerPoint, and everybody want to kill themselves with all the PowerPoints. And then we got Prezi, and then we got all these different ways of communicating. But I think now a lot of it's going to these SlideShare kind of sites where they want to have some content on there to remember later, because not always do they have the video or the audio or the, transcribed content. And I've been surprised by how much they're asking for more content on the slides lately. Just a new thing that I've been seeing.
Well, I'm not surprised because people want to feel as though they have stuff to take back with
Yeah,
them.
they do.
Because they're seeing 5 speakers in a row. After a while, you don't know the first one from the last one. But
It depends what your topic is. You know what I mean? If you're you're teaching them something, then I think they want more content. If you're there to motivate them and rah-rah them, then you don't need so much on it. You don't even need slides.
Even then, this is what I do. I may put 1 or 2 pictorials up on a slide.
Yeah.
But I will always give them a packet when they leave so that I am not addressing anything. First of all, I will not put words up unless it's 1 word or it's an acronym or something that I think is important to remember. But I will not do that because I don't want to insult my listeners, my
But if
audience.
you have thousands, though, I mean, there's thousands in some of these talks. You know what I mean? You can't print up that much.
I think that's too much.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I'm talking about these big events, the big events.
I've done them, and for an hour-long presentation, I am with my clients. The most
Mhm.
important thing that they hear from me is you don't want to be monotone.
Right.
And monotone is not just the intonation that you use to me. It's also steadily doing the same exact thing again and again and again, like a talking head without any expression. That is the surest way to turn people off. Look, we are in competition with the 30-second commercial, with the television show that is jam-packed with entertainment and excitement and adventure and all the. This is not that we wake up in the morning and say, oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger is my competition. Not at all. What we do unconsciously recognize is that we have got to entertain the way movies and all the other things that people watch, the way they do it, because this is what people are used to. And anything short of that is a sleeper. So you have to be very, very careful. And one of the things about the interaction on Zoom is that here we are staring at a camera maybe, and then we're pausing and we're doing all these different things to keep it real. I remember when I was talking to 20th Century Fox, when they were talking to me about doing the Dr. Gilda show. And I remember they sat there, these Hollywood moguls sat there and they watched my reel. Right. And I probably had seen the reel a million times, but I had suddenly seen it, I was seeing it through the Hollywood moguls' eyes.
Yeah, different.
And what they said to me was what actually got me the pilot for the Dr. Gilda show. They said, my God, you're so spontaneous. You never know what's going to come out of your mouth next. I said, I know. And sometimes
I don't either. Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I go with the flow. I know basically what I want to get across, but I just kind of go with the flow. And if something else happens, fun. Okay, this is an adventure.
That's so much better. I don't like the over rehearsing, knowing, and I think a lot of people get really stressed out by doing the more TEDx style talks, even though they're the greatest talks out there.
Yes.
It's very hard for people who are used to just going with the flow, because that you have a very specific amount of time and a very specific format and a certain things that you're supposed to say in a certain order. And I would almost want to see you do one just to see what it would be like, to see how you like.
When I have 2 minutes
Oh,
to
yeah.
concentrate on that.
Yeah, on your list about, yeah.
Yeah, I have such a list. Oh boy. I have so many things that have to be done. But no, I would like to do that. And I love the fact that they're only 18 minutes.
Well, they're getting shorter. Some of them, they have TED residencies, and all these other ones are 6-7 minutes if you're part of that, and they're getting shorter and shorter. And it's
Oh,
kind of like when I spoke for Verizon, what they had me when I was in New York do these really short bits that they were maybe 2 minutes here, 4 minutes. I mean, I think I went all the way to New York and filmed for 5 minutes for one thing, that they used, because they're taking a page out of like Verizon's book. I'm sorry, out of they're taking a page out of the TEDx kind of thinking process of having smaller bits, smaller content, and
well,
what they're doing is creating these really fun educational vignettes about whatever topic that they play over and over in their intranets and in their stores.
this is going, it's, look, our ability to sit still and watch anything for any length of time is getting more and more and more compressed. But I, by accident, turned on something called Quibi. Quibi?
Oh yeah, that just that they just are crashing now.
How do you pronounce that?
Quibi, I think they're having to be bought out. I don't think they're going to make it.
Not TikTok. Quibi.
I know Quibi's like little short movie versions of.
How about, yeah. How about, so I watched, I was glued. I couldn't believe it. 7 minute, it was almost as though they were full movie.
I know, that's their thing.
7 minutes. And then next one.
They just heard they were crashing those. Somebody's gonna have to buy them out. I just heard.
Well, it may be because these new, that's why it just kind of popped up and I didn't know anything about it.
I know, I don't think not a lot of people know about it. It's a different kind of a thing.
Well, I was fascinated. And one of the things that I've been talking about with my manager is compressing the original show that, well, since pandemic,
Yeah.
I've been thinking of all kinds of creative ways to get out there. But I was talking to her about a 10-minute show, a 10-minute show, another 10-minute show, another 10-minute show. And now that I'm watching 7-minute shows, wow. They were complete. I didn't feel as though I was incomplete after I watched one segment. And then I was so excited to see the next segment.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait. And, you know, as communicators, we are being taught that this whole idea of standing behind a lectern on a podium and trying to read something is outlandish, and it's not going to have people walk away with anything.